Hey y'all, and welcome to Stivers Homestead. I'm Zach, and this is Barn Chat. So during Barn Chat, we talk about some hot topics, some things that are burning through Jen and I's hearts throughout the week, and this one is one that we are extremely passionate about. So we've talked about our meat, we've talked about our vegetables, we've talked about all kinds of different things on this Barn Chat, and this one is going to be probably the biggest one yet. It is about our children and how that connects to homesteading and our urge for you to do something now. Now that it's summer break, it's time for a change. I'm hoping my mic is not picking up this chicken laying an egg behind me because she's quite loud. You done? Thank you. So, our children. This is a big hot topic because, let me give you a little backstory. Our kids are homeschooled, and they've been homeschooled ever since they started school. Wyatt did have a very short snippet of a few months where we tried public school, but we pulled him out very quickly after there was a scare and a lockdown at the school. It was like, yep, everything that we knew is coming true, so let's not do that. But that isn't the reason that we homeschool. The reason that we homeschool is very important to us. So before I get into that, I want to talk about the school system itself, and then I want to lead into why we believe you should make a change to go to homeschool, because it is an extremely important thing. But we have our beliefs on why we do it. But even if you don't have those beliefs, I'm going to try to give you some points on why you should do it anyways. So first off, whatever you think public school was and when you were going or when we were going, that's not what it is today. It's not the same. It's never the same. And likely so. Everything changes, everything grows. Everything adjusts to what the world's throwing at them, and school's no different there. I also have no issues with teachers or schools or anything in that matter. I know a lot of it, they're just teaching what they're being told to teach or what they have to teach. What I'm always talking about and what we always talk about in this Barn Chats are the ones that are behind the scenes, the ones that you don't see, the ones that are not teaching our children. It's the ones that are mainly making the money, because you always got to follow the money in all of these situations. So the school system is adjusting their curriculum often. And in my belief, it is changing to a curriculum that I don't really want my children learning. It's very political. It seems to be very one-sided. It doesn't seem to be the views and values that maybe we all believe in. But because they have so many children, it's one size fits all. And that's ultimately the biggest problem with public schools, is the one size fit all mentality. There's too many kids. There's too many kids in these schools. And each one has an individual mind and an individual way of thinking that they just can't coordinate to. They cannot focus on one kid's needs because they got 35 of them in their schoolroom. They have to bulk it. They have to one size fits all. So right there, our children are not getting the education specific for them that they need, because everyone learns a little bit different. Let me give you a prime example of that. Because we do homeschool our children, we're very aware of each way our children learn. Wyatt, he's 9, he'll be 10 in July. Ever since we started homeschool, that kid, we can give him directions specifically, and he'll take off and roll with it. Heads down, got this taken care of. He'll come ask questions when he needs them. Raylan, on the other hand, is much more creative. She has a very big imagination. And with that big imagination, sometimes directions, like a specific set of directions, are a little bit more difficult for her. She needs to be walked through it some, because her mind wants more. Her mind wants it to be more complicated. And even though it might be a simple line of directions, because she is so creative, it's a little bit more difficult. So we had to spend a little bit more time with her to get her to explain it, to simplify it down, and that it is a lot easier for her. When our kids are in school, if both of ours were in public school, they're both getting taught the same thing, right? So then all of a sudden, Raylan would probably be behind, because the way that Wyatt learns is more of the specific way that is being taught. Here's the directions, do it. Because we have so many, I need all of you all to do it, and I'll come around and try to help as I can. But it's not great. And there's a timeline. Like, we have a short amount of time that we have to get this done, because this class is only 30, 45 minutes, and then you got to jump right off into the next subject. That puts Raylan in public school system behind. And she's not at all. 100% not. She just needs to be taught differently. Once Jen and I figured that out, she's right up with Wyatt now. It was that simple of just paying attention to what our daughter was trying to do, acknowledging it, and adjusting how we taught her. So we adjust and teach them separately. You're not going to get that in public school. Secondly, the core values in public schools. Is it matching your core values? It's a big question you need to ask. I'm not going to make that judgment for you. You need to understand, you need to know what's being taught, how it's being taught, and if it's something that you agree with. Because if it's not, why do you want your kids learning it? They're your children. You got to remember, they're your children. They're not the school's children. And that's very important for you to understand that you have a voice and power on what's happening for your kids. The better thing to do is to homeschool. So you're going to be looking at the core values of each school. What's their purpose? You know, there's still a lot of good schools. Like I know in our little town here, the schools are really good. We actually kind of looked into it a couple times because we let our kids, it's not a forced decision. We ask them each year, and I want to get into some of their things that they like about homeschool too. But each year we reassess and we allow them to choose. Now, it's been hands down 100% homeschool every single time, but as they get older, you never know. So we want to make sure that it's an open, clear conversation with each other, and they know that they have a voice too. But a lot of these schools have different reasoning than what you want your kids to learn. So make sure that you're understanding what is being taught to them, and if you agree or disagree. My biggest point here, and this is the biggest one that Jen and I landed on, it always gets brought up every time we talk about homeschool. Your children are going to school really early. They're getting off in between 2 and 3, sometimes a little bit later, depending on what time they start and all that good stuff. It also depends on if they're all year round or not all year round. They're away from you more than they're with you. Let that sink in. They're away from you, being raised and taught by someone else more than they're with you, the parents. The parents that chose to have children that God blessed you with, we're shipping them off for someone else to raise them the majority of time a day instead of being with you. The parents that are supposed to be molding these children into good citizens are not being majority raised by you. That's a problem. Now, that was very direct, but think about it. You wanted children. They're your responsibility, not someone else's. And it's not about, I can't afford to homeschool, I can't quit my job and this and that. Again, it's about priorities. You can make anything work if you set your mind to it. What we really don't want to admit, that it's not about the money. It's two things. One, we've been trained for 8 to 5 jobs. Like we have been trained for Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, and that's it. That's why they do it in school. That's why school's the same time. It's not because the parents are at work, so it's a perfect time to do schooling. It's already training them into this Monday through Friday work, have 2 days off, go do it again the next week. It's training them to become line workers. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with line workers getting you money, doing what you need to do to pay your bills. But we, as adults and the parents, may be doing what we have to do to get by. But this younger generation can change if we're willing to change. If we're willing to break that mold of 8 to 5 and college, right, and going straight to college, if we can break that mold and let our children be more unique and let our children be formed how we as parents want them to be formed. Because I don't care who you are, kids' minds, you can mold them into whatever you want to. So do you want it to be molded in a public school with a teacher that's overworked, that has way too many kids every day? They can't give that time of day to be unique to each individual child? Or do you want to be the person, the parent that had these children, and mold them in to what you want them to be? Mold them in to becoming the citizen and this grown adult that you would want your daughter to marry, or that you would want your son to marry. We can do that as parents. And maybe you're a grandparent watching. If you're a grandparent watching, maybe if the parents are just unable to, maybe they don't have greatest paying jobs and they're both just working their butts off to get the bills paid, which, hey, respect for you all. But maybe the grandparent could step in as the homeschooler. Maybe if they're retired and they're somewhat close to you, we can work together to say, hey, I want to pull my kids out of school and I would love for you to homeschool them until I can get to that point to where I'm doing it myself. Because at least that's your family. That is still your core values. That's what raised you into becoming the person that you are. So it's still better than having to get shipped off to public school bright and early every morning. The ultimate one-liner here, though, is what I already said. You chose to have children. You wanted children. It is your responsibility to raise those children, not someone else's. Let that one sink in deep. So now that I've got your mind thinking about it, and you're starting to question things, and you're starting to think, yeah, that kind of makes sense, or it doesn't. Maybe you just completely disagree with me, and that's perfectly fine too. That's the beautiful part of this world. You can completely disagree. But now that I've got you at least hopefully thinking, let me tell you some of the beautiful pieces of homeschool. Remember me telling you how Raylan didn't have that, she's not great with simple, direct directions because she wants to make them more complicated than they are? What if I also told you that girl can milk this cow, I don't know if you can see her or not, by herself. She already knows how to birth goats. She's had her arm up in it and pulled out. She knows how to watch for signs of sickness in animals. And she's even expressed to me that she would be interested in being a vet because she loves working with animals. Would she have understood that so quickly at 7 in public school? I don't know. If our goats are in labor, we can stop school that day. We can go out and be with the goats. She doesn't have to rush off to the bus or get dropped off at school, so she gets to do chores with me. That's why she knows how to milk the cow. And Wyatt's the same. We alternate chore days. Wyatt loves country life. He loves being out here. Something cool that he does sometimes is he has a journal, and we'll go just sit in the barnyard, kind of like I sit in the barn here and watch the animals. He likes being in it. But he'll sit on the hill and he'll write in his journal. So our very simple directions kid, the one that is, tell me what I need to do and I'll go do it, is now starting to find his intellectual creative side by writing. I have dreams. He's a lot like his mother. And if you know Jen, you know, she's wrote a cookbook. So she's an author. And I can see him becoming just like her. Like it's starting to form to where they're like twins. And so as I'm watching him grow up, homeschooling because we're here, I'm starting to think maybe that little boy might become an author someday. Maybe he'll write a book like his mommy. And how cool would that be? So those are just a very short couple examples that are absolutely beautiful because we're able to homeschool. Other pieces, our kids aren't exhausted. They can sleep in, you know, besides chores day, they alternate. But they're not having to wake up at 6, 7 a.m. in the morning every day to get rushed out of the house. We get to be there when they wake up. They get to come downstairs, see mommy and daddy, having a cup of coffee, eat breakfast all together without a rush to go. Gotta get out the door. We're late. So they wake up stress-free. They're not having anxiety on if they're late or if they gotta go or whatever it is. They're getting to be kids. And when they're able to be kids, their attitude's so much different. There's no acting out. It's just great. So let's talk about the negative. Let's talk about that beautiful, beautiful thing that we always get asked. What about social life? It's my favorite thing. Because I was the same way. When Jen brought this up, because I should have led with that background. She was homeschooled, moved to public school, but majority of her schooling was public. Mine was all public school the whole way up. I was so worried our children would not have a social life. But then it kicked into my head, what was the social life? What was the social life in school? Being stuck in the classroom and told you have to be quiet the whole time? You can't talk to nobody? You get, 2-3 minutes in between classes to maybe talk around a locker. You have extracurricular activities. Well, so do homeschool kids. They can play baseball, football, basketball, soccer, dance, cheerleading, all the stuff that public school kids do. They won't have friends after school. Wrong. There's homeschool communities. Homeschool movement's huge. There's one, I guarantee, in your town of a homeschool group that probably meets once a month, a couple weeks every day. So the social life issue is not a thing. If anything, homeschool kids are more sociable. And it's funny, I can handpick a homeschool kid out of a public school kid because homeschool kids know how to talk to adults better than public school kids. And I will take that to the grave. You can see it and you can know it immediately. Because homeschool children are spoken to as equals. We don't want them to look at us as in we're the boss and you do as we say and when we say it. Sit down, be quiet, raise your hand if you want to speak. That doesn't happen in homeschool. We teach teach them like adults would want to treat other adults. We speak, you speak. We don't interrupt. We let things come completely out. But I don't have to give you permission to open your mouth, because that is wrong. So I could go on and on and on and on and on and on and on about why you need to do this, but ultimately it's going to be your decision. Now that the school year has ended, that's why I felt it was appropriate to bring this up now. As you're going through the summer, start investigating your state's laws, because each state is going to be different on their homeschool laws. Kentucky is one of the lighter ones. It's very easy to homeschool. To my understanding, places like North Carolina are much more difficult. There's a lot more hoops to jump through to make it happen. I know Tennessee's really good too, but you have to figure out your laws if you're interested in this. You have to figure out what you need to do and what specifically you have to do to make sure that you're homeschooling and staying under the radar. It's not about fighting the system. It's about staying under the radar. So check it out. Get investigating. You have, May, end of May? Kids go back in school, August? Man, what a break, right? June, July. Let's cram everything in June and July, because that's the only time that we can do stuff whenever we want to, because you're not in school. Figure out your laws. Figure out how you can make this work. You got time, because I know you can make it work. Another beautiful thing too, because it just popped in my head. Y'all know when you go on spring break, fall break, stuff like that, how packed everywhere is. That's because you and everybody else has spring break that one week. And you got to jam in a vacation that week, because it's the only time that you have to where they won't be tardy from school or whatever it is. Homeschool life, you can go on vacation whenever you want to, and it is nice. Gosh, let me tell you, there's not lines. It's not chaotic. You don't have anxiety of just the amount of people that are everywhere. You can find parking spots. You can get into restaurants. You can do all these things so much simpler. I love that part. I love us being able to just take off whenever we want to. And I always like to give this caveat, because I know people are like, well, it's easy to say now that you quit your job, you're farming, you're doing this, YouTube and Facebook and stuff. It's not how it started, y'all. We didn't start homeschooling once all this happened. When Jen and I were dating at 22, she looked at me, she said, I'm gonna be a homeschool mama, and that's what's gonna happen. I was like, all right, sounds good to me. So I was making $9 an hour. She was home with Wyatt. And we just got better. We knew what the goal was, so we stuck to it. We didn't give it an option that, hey, the kids are gonna have to go to school and Jen, you're gonna have to go back to work. We knew what we wanted, so we fought for it. And there was all kinds of struggles to start. Don't get me wrong. There's all kinds of curriculums out there. There's really expensive ones, there's not really expensive ones. Don't let that kill you, especially at young ages. You know what they need to learn. Colors, letters, shapes. It's simple. There's all kinds of free worksheets and stuff that are online that you can get. And then as they get into the more complicated stuff, don't fear that you can't teach them, because you can. And there's all kinds of guides to help you. But then also, it's homeschool. Set the curriculum how you want to. Like, one that I'm really passionate about is cursive. I don't care if they can write full paragraphs in cursive, but by gosh, they're gonna write their name. Because I want them to be able to put their signature on something. You notice how it's starting to feel more and more like we're just putting our mark on things? Because people don't know how to write in cursive. Our kids are learning cursive. But my point is, it's your curriculum. Don't compare it to others. Definitely don't compare it to school. Compare it to what your children need and roll with it. Learn your kids. It's beautiful. Learn what makes them click. Learn what makes them succeed. Give them more of that. Don't just keep pushing things that are going to make them fail and get discouraged. You have the power to homeschool. You have the power to set your children up for success. And ultimately, you chose to have children, and it is your responsibility to raise them, not someone else. So I hope this barn chat helped open some eyes. I hope it got you thinking. And like I said, if you're the grandparent, step in, maybe bring it up. Offer. Maybe they just need an offer. Let's all be willing to do what it needs to take to make this happen. This is your do one more thing today. You're gonna research to see what it would take to be able to homeschool those children. Children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, nieces, nephews, whatever it is. That's your one more thing. That's what you're gonna do. So thank y'all for hanging out with me today. Again, everything that's said in here can be completely disagreed with, and that's okay. I'm just coming from a perspective of a homeschool family and wanting to express to you that it's not scary, that it's not lonely, that your kids will still thrive, probably better, and that at least open that door to look into it. Don't just flatline it and say there's no chance that this is happening. Look into it. Just like we look into what the food that we're getting at grocery stores. Just like we're looking into what the medication that we're getting from doctors. We're gonna look into what our kids are learning on a daily basis and see what maybe the other side looks like. Because like I keep telling you, I don't know if you've caught on, because if you agree with me in the previous videos, there's pieces that are gonna be agreed on every video. Pieces, at least. So you can at least tell me you're gonna check it out. You're gonna investigate, you're gonna see what you can do. And I guarantee you right now, down in the comments, there's a bunch of other homeschool families that just completely agree and say it's the greatest thing ever. Get your kids out of school, start homeschooling them. Start making it your responsibility, and I guarantee you there's all kinds of beautiful stories down there right now on what these young children became up and grew up to be being homeschooled. Because they got to choose. They got to become who they wanted to be, not who they were told to be. That's a big one. They got to grow up and figure out who they wanted to be and not who they were told to be. Let's let them figure out who they want to be. If y'all new around here, hit that subscribe button. We love y'all. Until the next one.